The laughter echoed across the sunlit courtyard like a slap. It was the kind of laughter that turns heads, that makes strangers pause mid-step and wonder who just got humiliated. Midday light poured over the marble steps of Westbridge University, glinting off phones raised high to record the spectacle. And at the center of it all stood Saira Malik, smiling coldly as she held up her ex-boyfriend's worn leather wallet for everyone to see. Armand Qureshi stood a few feet away, frozen, his face pale under the bright afternoon sun, as whispers rippled through the crowd. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Whisper Tales 3. Stories like this remind us how quickly life can turn, and how powerful forgiveness can be. It had started as a casual reunion, graduation day. Families were everywhere, proud parents snapping pictures, bouquets of fresh flowers clutched in trembling hands. Saira had always been the golden girl of the business department, confident, stylish daughter of a respected entrepreneur. She moved like she owned the campus, her heels clicking against the stone tiles as if announcing her arrival. Armin, on the other hand, had been the quiet scholarship student, intelligent, humble, always sitting in the front row, always helping others without asking for recognition. They had once been inseparable. Late afternoons in the library, shared cups of cheap coffee, dreams whispered under the shade of old oak trees. But somewhere along the way, ambition and ego built walls where love once stood. Saira broke up with him months ago, telling him he lacked drive, that he was too ordinary for her future. What she never admitted was that his quiet strength intimidated her, and his integrity exposed her own insecurities. That afternoon, when she spotted him wearing the same simple suit he had worn for presentations, something in her hardened. Surrounded by her equally flashy friends, she called him over with a smirk. Someone started recording. It was supposed to be a joke, a harmless jab to entertain her circle. But cruelty has a way of growing legs. She mocked his suit, his shoes, even the scuffed edges of his wallet. She joked that he probably couldn't even afford a decent lunch to celebrate. The crowd chuckled, some awkwardly, some eagerly. Armand tried to smile, tried to brush it off, but his eyes betrayed him. They shimmered, not with anger but with hurt. He had worked 2 part-time jobs while studying, sent money home to his widowed mother, and still graduated with honors. Every mark on that wallet was a reminder of sacrifice. Just as the laughter reached its peak, a sleek black car rolled to a stop near the gate. It wasn't unusual. Many wealthy parents had arrived in style. But when the driver stepped out and opened the back door, a hush began to spread. A tall, dignified man in a charcoal suit emerged, his silver-streaked hair catching the sunlight. His presence alone seemed to shift the air. It was Rahman Qureshi, the founder of Qureshi Holdings, one of the largest construction empires in the region. His name was known across cities, his face seen in business magazines, his philanthropy praised in headlines. Saira's smile faltered. Her father had often spoken of him with admiration. Rahman's eyes scanned the courtyard until they rested on Armin. For a split second, pride softened his otherwise stern expression. He walked forward calmly, each step measured. The crowd parted instinctively. Without raising his voice, he placed a firm hand on Armin's shoulder. The gesture was protective, unmistakably paternal, and then, in a tone steady enough to silence even the boldest whispers, he announced that Armand Qureshi was not just a graduate of Westbridge University. He was his son, his only son. The words fell like thunder. Saira felt the ground shift beneath her. Heat rushed to her face as realization crashed over her. The boy she had just ridiculed for being ordinary was heir to an empire. But more than that, he was standing there with the same quiet dignity he always had, wealth revealed yet unchanged. Rahman continued, speaking not of money or status but of pride. He spoke of a young man who insisted on earning his place without using his father's name, who chose scholarships over privilege, buses over chauffeurs, and hard work over shortcuts. He said his son wanted to understand the value of struggle before stepping into leadership, that every blister and every late night had been a choice, a lesson in humility. The courtyard was no longer buzzing. It was silent, heavy with shame and awe. Saira's friends slowly lowered their phones. The video that was meant to humiliate now felt like evidence of their own shallowness. Syra herself could barely breathe. Her chest tightened, not because Armand was wealthy, but because she suddenly saw how small she had been. She remembered the nights he stayed up helping her study, the way he celebrated her successes louder than his own, the patience in his eyes when she doubted herself. And she had traded that for applause. Armand gently removed his father's hand from his shoulder and stepped forward. There was no anger in his expression, only quiet resolve. The same sun that had illuminated his embarrassment now shone on his composure. In that moment he looked taller than anyone else there. He didn't boast. He didn't mock her in return. He simply thanked his father for coming and turned to leave with him. The dignity in that exit struck harder than any insult ever could. As the black car drove away, Syra remained rooted to the spot. The courtyard slowly returned to life, but the energy had changed. Whispers now carried a different tone, not amusement but reflection. People began to disperse, some shaking their heads, others lost in thought. For the first time in her life, Syra understood the weight of her actions. It wasn't about wealth or status, it was about character. She had measured a man by his shoes when she should have measured him by his soul. That afternoon marked a turning point. The humiliation she intended for someone else became her greatest lesson. In the weeks that followed, Syra withdrew from the shallow circles she once thrived in. She started volunteering at a community center her father supported, working alongside people she had once overlooked. Slowly she began rebuilding herself, not her reputation but her values. Armand meanwhile stepped into his new role with the same humility he had always shown. Under his guidance, Qureshi Holdings launched scholarship programs for underprivileged students. He visited campuses not as an untouchable executive, but as someone who understood struggle firsthand. Months later, at a charity event held in broad daylight under a canopy of white and gold, their paths crossed again. This time, there were no cameras, no laughter, only a quiet understanding that growth often blooms from painful soil. They spoke briefly, not about the past but about purpose. And in that exchange was something far more powerful than pride: forgiveness. Sometimes, the brightest daylight reveals the darkest flaws within us. And sometimes, it also illuminates the path to becoming better. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, share, and comment below. Your support helps stories like this reach more people who need a reminder about humility and grace. And before we close, take a second to comment the word kindness if you believe no one should ever be judged by appearances. Life has a strange way of exposing who we truly are, not through our wealth but through our choices. And in the end, it is not the one who laughs the loudest who wins, but the one who walks away with dignity shining brighter than the sun.